I'll just ask if you can see my screen to kindly tell me in the chat box so that I can be sure we are together. If you can see my screen, you can just alert me that you can see it so that and you can hear me properly. John, you can hear me properly? Yes, sir. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so that being said, uh, yesterday we went through the assignment. Yes, I am made to understand that uh, people had some few questions here and there, but I'm glad that they were answered. The questions were answered. Okay, so today yesterday we also went through the how to create a pivot table and to do a few things here and there from the pivot. So I think that was well in order, and I'm happy for that. So okay, Rayton, I think your mic has some background noise. Rayton, yes, kindly go ahead. And I don't know if it's your mic not properly plugged in, has some sound. You can try speaking again. If not, you can try typing something. Why not straight on? Mhm. Okay, here I remember I went ahead and added the rest, but I'll just go here to the first 100. Yes, you wanted to ask how you had a problem adding the rest of the observations. Okay, I'll want to know why you had a problem and where it might have been stemming from. Okay, it's a good question, Kabila. We'll relook at that. Any other person who had a certain such a problem? Any other person who had such a problem? Any other person who had such a problem? You can just mute your mic, Riton. Okay, thank you. Anybody who else who had such a problem or any other problem in the pivot tables? Because remember, guys, I wouldn't want to move, and people are not moving with me. Okay, it's only right that we cover as much, okay, but get to understand all that we cover. The main aim of this class is not to know everything and understand nothing. The main aim of this class is to know something and understand it in totality. So I would rather that we cover as much but also get to know it as much. Okay. So thank you, Rayton, for that question. And I'll just repeat the step that I did yesterday. Okay. I'll go ahead and remove all my observation from 101. Okay. All the way down. I'll remove that part. Okay. I can even cut that part up. Then I'll go resize my table. Okay, I'll just click inside my table, go to the table design. Up here, you can see a ribbon known as table design. Okay, so I'll go to, I said there's a small button here, resize table. So I'll ensure that my table now is only on the first 100 rows. Okay, as I alluded yesterday, Excel currently does not. It carries the cached data that just indicates that to it the data that it uses is still the old data. Okay, so when I refresh this, you see right now here we have 1513 phones on the count of phones. Okay, so when I happen to refresh this part, okay, I'll just enlarge my ribbons. I like them compressed because of the screen becomes too big, but I'll just expand for the sake of this class. So here under the data tab, I'll just press the refresh all. Look at what happens now. My table now is reduced to 999 phones, which actually represents this first 99 observations, okay, or the data or the entries in my data, okay. So the next thing now, okay, if are we together up until that point, Kabila? This I'm tackling your question. Okay. So you see, I have 100 observations, okay? Yesterday I did two things. There's one observation in which I typed in manually, although I deleted it, okay? So the first thing you can do is type your observation, insert your observation manually, okay? Maybe whatever you sold, okay? Maybe I don't know. I just used yesterday. I happened to use a Google phone. I think it will be a good example. This is Google, maybe Google Pixel 7 Pro. Okay. You see, immediately I do this, and an arrow is added. Okay. So here I'll just fill in some fictitious details. Maybe the brand of the phone is Google. Okay. It costs around, maybe I don't know. So sales price is around 105K. Okay. The market retail price, we can give it at 99K. Okay. The discount percentage is 0. Number of ratings, maybe we say 10. Number of reviews, 90. Remember, these are just fictitious number, but I'm showing you what happens now when you adduce some data into a table. Okay. So maybe it has a star rating of 4.7. It has maybe 8 GB of RAM. Okay. Okay, and the person who bought it maybe is Rayton. Okay, if Rayton bought it, what is his 8? Maybe he's 187 centimeters or whatever. Maybe he's 21 years of age, and oh, sorry, weight. I don't know why that weight looks so. Maybe he's 65. Maybe he's 21. Maybe he's, I don't know from which university. We used USIU. Okay, Nairobi. Okay, so here when I want this record to be updated, whatever I'll just do is go to my table design under the resize table, just to see how far does my table go. Normally, even without going to the resize, when you add a column to the table, now it becomes part and parcel of that table. So but just to be on the safe side, especially when you're not, when you're using a range, and that's what we'll see today. When you're using a range to create a table, most of the times the range doesn't move by itself, okay? So you will be needed to maybe move the ranges, okay? So here, once I come and refresh my data here, if I come and refresh here, okay, now I go to my Google. I'll find the one Google phone that I've added, one piece, which is costing me 99,000, and then maybe that is the market retail price, I believe so, and then the sales price is 105. When I open, I can now see it's the Google Pixel 7 Pro. Okay, so that is if I was adding that data manually. Okay, so we said I'll just delete that because it was not part of. To delete a row, you can always right click, then go to delete. There is this option of delete. Okay, or if you want to do it fast, you can always use the control negative. Okay, to add, now is the opposite. To add a column in between, control shift, the positive sign. Okay, that is just an addition. Okay, so if I was to add the rest of the data now from 101 to whatever we were getting, I'll just go back to original data here. Remember, I've just picked everything from, I think, up until 100. Let me just confirm. Up to row 100. Okay, so I'll just go ahead from row 101, pick this. Okay, I'll copy it, Control C. Okay, and then here I'll give it Control V. All right, so what will I come do here? I'll come ensure that my table now extends to my newly added data, which is correct, goes up to row 1514. 1514, press OK. Now when I come here and refresh my pivot table, that is what happens. Now the records are updated and I have my phones here. 1513, which is of course true because I have 1514 rows and the first row is a header. Okay, so that is how you can use a pivot table just to add data. Okay, so I'll use another example in which we now use a range without a table, because I said there are two ways to insert a pivot table. Okay, so if for example I'd not converted this into a table, but sorry, I want to enter it as I want to use it as a pivot. Okay, so what will I do? I'll go ahead, select all the data. Okay, to select, guys, remember you always highlight with your mouse, or you can always use the keyboard buttons, which is a control shift to the side, control shift down, very fast to get to the first and the last columns. Okay, so here I'll go to the insert pivot table. Remember, I've not created it, I've not changed it into a table. This is just a normal range. I'll say okay. Okay, so I'll just maybe use the same, let me just call it range pivot to differentiate it from the, so this range pivot, I'll just move it nearer this. I'll hide this. So here we had I want to replicate the same in the range pivot, brand, product name. I want the brand, the product name. Maybe what else did we have here? I want the count of phones and the total expenditure. Now I'll just do one because again we just want to see how to maybe adduce some data from a certain place. For the value, I'll just use market retail prices, but now as a count. Okay, as a count there. Okay, so you can see here I'm having 99 phones. Okay, but I now want to go and let me just minimize this so that you can see. I hope you can see. So on this table with 99 phones, okay, what I want is now coming from this range of data. Remember now, I think I have one too many. I'll just hide some of them because they're not important. So here I now want to come and add data from 101 all the way down. Okay, let's come and add our data from 101. Remember now this is a range and not a table. So all the way from, again, 101. Okay, I'll just copy it. I'll go to my data here, down here. I'll add it. Okay, now look what happens. Remember here in my pivot table, let's us try refreshing and see if it really works. You see, nothing changes here. Okay, because you are using a range. What happens now, you can always now go here. Hope everybody is following. Sorry for that. Sorry for that. Let me just delete this. Here on the under your pivot table, you can always go to your pivot, go to the pivot table, analyze, okay, this ribbon, and then go to change your data source. When you change your data source, remember now it was only getting to, you see where the line is. I hope you guys can see clearly. It only gets to, despite adding the data, this line only gets to 100. If you can see my screen, you can see the range starts from A1 to 0, 1 to O 100. Okay, but I want this range to go all the way down to, sorry, I just want this range to go all the way down to 1514. So you can either highlight it or just come change here to 1514. Okay, once you do that and press OK, and now go back to your data, you'll find that your data has updated. Okay, so if you don't want the extra step of having to change your range once you're in the pivot, I will always advise you to use a table, um, to use a table to create your pivot. Okay, so some versions of Excel had a problem with tables, because once you create a table, they were not giving you the option of, now, okay, let me just go to a table. Let me unhide one. Okay, this one. Once you create a table, they're not giving you an option of going back from the table to converting back to a range. But with newer versions, this is available, because what is the problem in tables? Sometimes you might want to do some individual calculation, but you see now it works column wise. So that's why most of the people used to avoid using a table to create a pivot. But since this has been sorted, you can always convert your table back to a range once you're done using it. And once you convert it to a range, now you must be sure now to do all the addition of the columns manually. All right, up until that point, is there any question? Right on, I believe your question should be answered in completeness. Okay, any other question? Can't hear you. Okay, all right, any other question from the class, that is? Hi, hi. Mhm. Okay, I would say for this type of pivot table, no, because again, you see, the data source it uses is just one. Okay, so unless you use the power pivot, in which you might look at later, is uh for the normal pivot table, no. Okay, because the only option you'll have to is to combine the various data sets, so long as, remember, they have the same, or like same names in the column, you can combine them to create one data source, in which now you will use to create your pivot table. Okay, so that can be done manually, or automatically by this consolidate button. Okay, so this consolidate, under, I'll just click it so that you can see the syntax, and maybe go try use it. Under data ribbon, there's a consolidate button here. This consolidate, it tells you, it summarizes data from separate ranges, consolidating the results into a single output range. Okay, so maybe you have the same data in different worksheets. Sometimes you might find yourself having like 1,000 worksheets. Okay, but you just want, and all of them have same column names. Okay, so the data just the difference is just in, you might find one has 10 rows, another one has 20, so you might use this consolidate function just to bring in the data together and create a pivot from there. Yeah, that's a nice question, Joel. Okay, any other question, guys? Did you practice creating calculated ranges? I want to see in my chat box if you guys were able to create calculated ranges on your data, and which one did you calculate, did you did you use? Okay, because I'm sure not all of us used whatever we used here. You can just have your own ideas and use such. Did you guys Were you guys able to create calculated columns on your data? I need some responses to know that that point was well understood. Were you able to create any calculated columns in the data? If no, why? What was the challenge? John, were you able to calculate to insert a calculated column inside your data? No response is very worrying because I believe everybody should have been able to at least insert a calculated column in the data. I need some response to know if to go over that again. Yes, John did. Omondi Oko and Del said not yet, the time constraints, but we'll do on the weekend. Okay, that's still okay. John says they did. So from those responses, they are very positive responses, meaning that we did understand the point, and people are able to do such things. Okay, so the drillability. There's one powerful thing about a pivot table is the drillability. Okay, look at the screen. If I do click here, you see here I'm able to see all the IQOO phones. Okay, what if I want to see how this amount came to be? Okay, once I double click on it, it brings to me all the IQ phones, okay, in a separate sheet with the IQ brand, the sales price, the market price, and all the other details just from double clicking on it. Okay, do you understand, guys? Like if I want now to see all the details at once from this pivot table, where is it? Here. Okay. For example, another phone. Maybe I want to see which phone it excites you most. I think let me just pick don't know which. Okay, I'm just looking for a nice phone to pick. Okay, I think I've used the Google one so much. Okay, just for example, we use the Oppo. So if I want to see the build up of this 1583, I might be able to see using the metrics that I've used here. Okay, but what if I want to go now to the raw data that is building this Oppo? Okay, the drillability, as in all the data that is inside there. What will I do? I just double click inside my data, and this is what happens. Now I'll get all the Oppo phones that are building up all that data that has been summarized on my pivot table. Okay, it took some time to load, but here it is. So I'll just get to know that all these phones of the brand Oppo now only are here. Okay, so and this now expands from the phones that I had picked here. Okay, has everybody been able to see that, do that, replicate that? Sorry, I have problem with my eyes kidogo. Okay, have you been able to see that and do and replicate that? Maybe I'll just delete these extra sheets that I've created. Have you been able to see that and do that? Okay, so guys, I want us today again to start from scratch on building a pivot table as we go all the way up. Okay, so that I know a few people might have had a challenge yesterday, but maybe they are too, I don't know why somebody will be uh too timid maybe to ask where they have a problem. Kindly don't feel ashamed, don't feel afraid, be bold. Nobody's going to judge you, nobody's going to not answer you. So ask your question to ensure that you're answered in the right way. Okay, So guys, we'll create another pivot table here just to reinforce what we had did yesterday as we build up on today's class. So I'll summarize. Okay, once I summarize a pivot table, I can just come call it something. Maybe I can call it pivot table because now I want to build also pivot charts from this table. Okay. Okay. So here I want to see maybe at each row I want to see the brand maybe. Okay. I want to see the amount, the market retail price. Okay. What else do I want to see? I want everything maybe to be. Uh, I want to see how different towns bought regardless of the university. Maybe people in Bondo bought the Apple phone more than people in Bungoma who want to use the the Asus more. Okay, so I'll just format this. Okay, is everybody able to see how you can quickly format? Okay, just have zero with the thousand separator there. Okay, remember I said there are different ways. I'll just move my pivot a little bit so that you can be able to see. There are different ways in which you can choose to view your pivot table. Okay, so one of them being under the design. Yes, Mr. Kapila. Okay, just in a minute I'll be there. Here, here. Yes, I can't hear you clearly, unfortunately. The column. Uh-huh. In what do you have in the last column? You can just on top of Nairobi, if it was a blank, just fill it down. Yes, yes. I think it was left out by mistake and not by design. So if you get to just get it to call the column town, you can call it city, anything that will you will resonate with in there. Remember, this is just a practice data, okay? But thanks for that, Kabila. Okay, so as I was saying, there are various ways you can choose to view your table. Okay, so you can first under the design. I'll not go so much under the design, but under the design, you see at each town, there's an option that I get a subtotal here. Maybe I don't want that. Okay, so you can always choose a subtotal. Do not show subtotals. When I choose don't show subtotals, I get the phones that were bought in Bondo town. Okay, but there is no subtotal here. So if I want to see the subtotal, I'll just say I'll just go now to the show subtotal. Okay, show all subtotals. Okay, so when I show all subtotals, my subtotals come back. Okay, so subtotals are this. Okay, I don't know if you guys really understand what a subtotal is. Okay, let me just show you in another sheet as an example of how this thing works now in not so in now automatically instead of the automatic option. Maybe you have student one. Just bear with me as I explain this because I feel it's very important. Okay, student one, student up to student 5. Maybe these are in first year. Okay, maybe I have a student, another batch of students. Okay, and these are in second year. Okay, so if everybody was given maybe by their parents or they work a certain amount, I'm just generating random amounts in that sequence. I'll start from 40 here. I'll just drag them down. So here, just drag this down. Okay, we have these two classes. Okay, so this is what happens if I was told to calculate. Maybe I had these breaks, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, sixth year, seventh year, and I want to get subtotals for each. Okay, in manually without using a pivot table, this is what happens. Okay, I will use the subtotal formula here. So this subtotal formula, as you can see it on my screen, enables you to get a subtotal just of a certain group. Okay, so when I maybe choose subtotal 9 because it has different, one is the average, two counter, counter, max, mean, product. Okay, so if I was just summing this, which is the sum subtotal in the pivot, this is what I will sum. Okay, so I will get 150 there. I will come use the same formula down here. Subtotal 9, 1 is the average. You can just check here. That's why I encourage you to be always checking your, to be always practicing. But because once you practice and you see the arguments, you'll see that subtotal uses such arguments. So I'll just use the 9, which represents the sum. So here these two parts are subtotals. Okay, so if I was to go ahead and get a grand total of the amounts by everybody in this in these two classes, if I ended up summing them, okay, so if I sum this everything, I will get twice the amount. Okay, this is not a true representation of these two numbers. So what will I need to do? I'll just use still the subtotal now to get the grand total. I'll use the subtotal here. So when I use the subtotal here, you see I've highlighted the whole column here. So but it goes ahead and ignores this subtotal here and this subtotal here. Are you together, guys? So that is just basically a subtotal, a group total of a certain group. Okay, I don't know if that explanation really kicks in well, but yeah. So if I was to anything, this is the grand total, but these two are my subtotals. Okay, so back to the pivot chart. So sometimes you want your table to be having such. This is a subtotal for this group only, the subtotal for this group, but down here I have a grand total. Okay, so this grand total now is for all the phones that are here. Okay, so here is the grand total for all the phones that are in that data set. Okay, so now we were in the design. Here under the design, you can choose to show your subtotals, do not show your subtotals. Okay, you can choose to show all subtotals at the bottom of the group. Okay, so instead of how it was appearing at the top here, you can choose where to now have your total. Okay, the other option at the top of the group, as it were, because I find this more neater. Okay, if you really want to show the subtotals. Okay, and the other option is do not show. The other option now becomes you can have the grand totals for the row. Okay, off for rows and columns. Okay, on for rows and columns. That is for both. Okay, look at what happens. Since we don't have any other columns, it won't have any other subtotals. Okay, so but if we had two columns here, for example, I go ahead and add a column. Okay, let me just add a column. Maybe I'll just add the sales price. Okay, here now if I was to have a total at each point, maybe Apple this and Apple that. Okay, I'll just go back to my design tab, go and on for rows and columns. Okay, just see. Oh, sorry. Hey, okay, I'll just check that and give you back in a minute, but that is basically what it means. You can choose to select where your grand totals appear. So I'll just check that grand total. Okay, so I'll just remove this sales price. Okay, in other words, if that doesn't work, you can always use your calculated column to calculate the sum between two columns. Okay, that will automatically work well. So these are the different ways you can represent your layout. Okay, so there is one, the compact form. Okay, so in the compact design, it looks like this. I don't know how it's compact, something that is compact held in together. Okay, but when you go now to the outline, you'll find like it now has the different at each point of the field. Now it does separate. Okay, so if we have the uh the town, the brand, and if we went ahead and added something to our, sorry for that, if we went ahead and added something for to our fields, maybe university, I'll just go to college. If I added college there, now it again breaks down Chuka, then the brand and all that. Okay, so that is the outline report view. Okay, so another layout, the last one, sorry, the last one should be the tabular form. Now this one shows it in the design of a table. Okay, so you notice by default this one, the subtotals come down here, which was we had seen as from the subtotals. It's like showing at the bottom of the group. Okay, now this again, it looks more neater for presentation, that is, but now that is your cup of coffee to choose whatever now you want to use. Okay, so row headers and all that, these are the different designs that you can choose. Okay, you can choose when you hover over all these tiles. Maybe you like a certain theme, a certain color, in a certain manner. Okay, you can always choose none or the minimum design. They all under the design tab of the pivot table. So under the ribbon design, once you have your inside your pivot table, you can always use that. You can use banded rows, banded columns, banded in terms of they have this band like orientation. Okay, so that's one. Okay, but before we even go to that, now something else. Okay, so you have your pivot table, you have your pivot here. Okay, so for example, now I want to create a chart that shows me how many phones or how much amount was bought for the phones that are on this table. Okay, just a graphical representation. Okay, so here I'll just go remove the brands. Okay, just to get at each town what was bought. So I'll just check I have like 29. It will not be a very pretty graph, but we can try and insert a bar graph and see. So once you want to insert a dynamic bar graph, okay, to insert a chart that is now affected by the columns in this data, what do? You go to the under the pivot analyze. Okay, you go to pivot charts. Okay, so once I go to the pivot chart, I can choose to select the chart that I want. Okay, for example, I choose a bar chart like that. Okay, then I press OK. See, now this chart gives me these ones, but they're not well represented because it even goes ahead and plots this 19,781. Okay, so I can just go ahead, remove my grand totals. Okay, so I'll just go back to the design. I'll say off for rows and columns. Okay, then there's this blank. Okay, okay, I'll just go back to my design. I can even just come here and filter out the blank. Okay, now from this, it now gives me a better representation from the pivot chart of, now clearly, just at a glance, I can see that the biggest spender of phones is in Nairobi. Okay, this I've not arranged my data in any way, and I can even clearly just tell from the graph that the biggest spender is in is in Nairobi. Okay, so here you have the option of filtering out towns. Okay, I hope you're following through because this is quite important and imperative for everybody to understand how you go around a pivot chart using a pivot table. Okay, so that being said, you can come ahead like we had done yesterday, just sort from the largest to the smallest. You see now your graph keeps on changing dynamically without the need of you changing at each and every point. There's no need of you changing the graph. The graph now follows whatever you use here. Okay, so what happened if I went to my table design? Okay, my field list story and now change from the town. I am no longer interested in the town. I'm now interested in the college to see which college bought which type of phones. Okay, again go here. I'll just again sort largest to smallest. Okay, clearly you can see that the biggest spenders in terms of mobile phones was Moi University, then it was followed by Kibabii, then Moranga, then Machakos, then Technical, then Kenyatta University, then Kisii in terms of the individual uh, spenders in the phone. Okay, so this again, now this pivot chart now dynamically, okay, uh uses this table. Okay, remember there are different ways that you can choose to format your table, your pivot chart. Okay, so if for example my chart starts from 200,000, I wouldn't want my axis to start from zero, but rather from, I can see the minimum value here is 211. I can just go now to my chart, right click the axis, go under format axis, then I change my minimum value now to, I just copy this. You can write 200,000, you can write to the exponential, whatever makes you happy. So like here I can start from 0.2. Okay, just to give my graph a better look. I can try change a few things. I can change the title here. Okay, so remember these are things that you can only do once you have correctly created your pivot chart. Are we together? Okay, there, I had not seen those pardons, but I will pardon you because I know I might have moved with speed a little bit, so I'll repeat. First of all, my question to Ezekiel and Scholar: have you been able to create a pivot chart? A pivot table, that is the first question. Have you been able to create a pivot table? Okay, that's okay. So if you have been able to create a pivot table, then okay, you have not been able to create a pivot table. Do you have the data with you? All right. Is the last column indicated town in your data? All right. So with that being said, Scholar, I'll just remove this table. Okay. Go to your data. I'll just copy this one just because of, so that we don't leave anybody behind. Just go to your data, copy to a new sheet the whole of your data, then Control C, so that we leave our original data intact, because we might be needing it from time to time just for this example. So once you copy it, press Control T. Okay, once you've created your table, a ribbon will pop up here with the table design. Then you'll go ahead and create, use the summarize with pivot table here. Okay, so once you have been able to do that, you'll have these fields here, and then we said with these fields you can move them however you like, whether you want your brands to be on the row, whether you want your brands to be on the column. I don't know why a person would want that, but because these brands will be too many spread out here, so let's just choose them on the row. Okay, let's just have let's have the market retail prices on the values. Then we minimize our our table. I'll just maximize it just for so that you guys can see clearly. Okay, so here we have created sorry, we've created a pivot table. I hope Scholar you're following through and have been able to create this pivot. Okay, from your data, create a table, go under the table design, summarize with pivot table. Okay, so once you summarize with pivot table, it will bring you onto this page with the new pivot table now inside a new sheet, in which now you will be able now to move in between the pivot fields. Okay, so here I'll just go ahead and delete this so that I go back to where we were. I'll also delete this. So once you're here with your pivot table, okay, if your field list fails to appear, for example, you press X by mistake, now you click inside the pivot, you can't see it. Now you're wondering, hey, where has my field list gone? You can always click it under the pivot table analyze. There's this button here known as the field list. Just click it, okay? So if you don't want, like, if you want your table not to have buttons on here, you also have the ability, just click that. Okay, so if you don't want headers in your field headers, you can always click that. Okay, but now this is just show and unshow. Okay, under the pivot analyze ribbon. Okay, so what was I saying? I was saying now from here we may need to create a chart. Okay, a chart that now is affected by this pivot table. Okay, so how do we do that? We said now once you're here, okay, you can always go to your pivot analyze. Okay, once you're here, just next to where we were here in the field list, you will see pivot chart. Okay, so once you click it, you will see the different types of charts. I think we can go through them tomorrow now using the insert button. Okay, very similar to what we have under the insert. Okay, recommended charts. You see, just the same orientation as the insert, but now we want to create one chart that is now affected by the pivot table, which is not now known as a pivot chart. Okay, the other chart, while you create it, does not have the dynamic feature that a pivot table might have. Okay, so where do you get the pivot chart? Under the pivot table analyze ribbon, you'll always see tools there, and the tools include pivot charts. You can use the different types of charts that we have there. That one looks like a rainbow, maybe might not be able to display your data well. Maybe an area graph might be able to display. Okay, as not a radar map, a tree map might also be able to maybe even show you. Okay, it says that you can't create this chart type with data inside a pivot table. Please select a different type. So our tree map doesn't work very well with some of these newer functions don't work very well with pivot tables, but the initial ones, the column charts and then the bar charts, okay, this one work really well. Okay, so if I was just to see like a bar chart that is there, okay, so here is where I was saying you can come here and now input your own title. Okay, like these are some of retail prices by university. Okay, by uni. Okay, so this chart now represents the sum of uni prices by university. Now what happens, I want you to look at my screen very clearly. I can even choose to maybe reduce this size. I know it might be a challenge because some university names are very long. Okay, just leave it at that. So what happens now when I go to my field to my pivot analyze field list and maybe come and add a brand of phone? Okay, look at what happens to my chart. here my chart now struggles, okay, to have everything in that order, unless this chart was very big to accommodate all those brands. Then that's when it will produce a nice graph, okay. But remember, you can always remove, okay. For example, I'll go remove the college, okay. So here you can get to see that the phone that cost a lot of money is the Redmi. I don't know if you can see. When I plot this, the Redmi cost around here. No, sorry, the Samsung cost around 4.65 million, okay, which was true when we sorted this data. Oh, sorry, I want to sort this from the largest to the smallest. Okay, now you see the graph changes from the largest to the smallest to the likes of Motorola's, the Apple now in terms of value become the highest, okay. So this table is very nice because now you see, now here I need to change my narration of the title, okay. So when I change this, now my graph changes. I don't have to keep changing the uh the I don't have to keep changing the chart by myself, okay. So if I was maybe to look at the star rating, okay, of forms, okay, now I remove this, okay, and I don't want to use the sum of the star rating, I just want to use an average. I go to my value field setting, press OK. So you see that on average all phones are like nearing each other. Then I sort this from the largest to the smallest. Now you can see the phone with the highest star rating is an Apple phone with almost a 5-star rating, but it's just a rounded up number given by 4.57. And you can see a chart clearly shows you how those numbers are proceeding, though it might miss on some because now it shows after a certain rating, okay. So what if now I wanted to see the star rating by students from only a particular university without changing how my chart looks like? Because sometimes I may just want to see star rating by certain university without really including them in my chart, but having them as a filter, okay. Up until that point, I want for us to be together so that I can show you how now you can insert an external filter, okay, just maybe to see with the star ratings. I want to see only a certain university, okay. So there's no question, so I'll go ahead. So once you're here, there's a way to summarize your table, okay. So on this table, there's one way you can come here to the summary here, and then under the pivot table insert a slicer. It will ask you which type of slicer do you want. Maybe you put a college, okay. So once you insert a slicer, this thing will pop up, okay. This is now what we call a slicer. A slicer helps you to just to summarize data by the selected metric or parameter, okay. So for example, I've selected the college to be in my slicer, all right. So whatever now happens when I select a slicer will filter the data both in my pivot table and my pivot chart. For example, I wanted to see star rating of phones by students. Remember this, now we change to star rating, average star rating by phones bought by unis. Okay, so for example, I wanted to see students of Garissa University. You see what happens now? Now the chart changes and the table changes. The table becomes smaller, okay? The table becomes smaller because now it is only auto filtered by Garissa University. Now it will tell me students there bought Apple, which had a 5-star. Some bought Redmi, which had some 4-star, okay? So what happens when I go maybe to Jomo Kenyatta? Now the chart keeps changing. If you can look keenly here, the chart changes and also my pivot table changes. or if I go to Kenyatta University, again things change. If I go maybe to I'll go to Maseno, again the list becomes just as it is in the in the in the in the in the per university. Okay, so if I go to Meru, that is what happens. Remember, I can insert more than one slicer. Let's look when I happen now to, I'll just move this one here and move my slicer to my right a little bit so that everybody can be seeing clearly what is going on. I'll insert a slicer, another one. Okay, now without changing my, remember, if I had added this field college inside my graph, it will be very messy. Okay, so what I want to add another slicer. Look keenly on how we add slicers. Go to the pivot, analyze, go to insert slicer. Now I want a slicer for town. Press OK. Now I come here. Now I have two slicers. Look at what happens to the first slicer when I use the second slicer. The first slicer has the full range of university. Nothing is filtered out. Here I have the second range, full range of towns. Nothing is filtered out. What happens when I select a town like Nairobi? Okay, so when I select a town like Nairobi, everything else that is not Nairobi is grayed out. Okay, so what do I have here now? It on the second slicer, I only get the the phones, the universities that are in Nairobi. Okay, so this can clearly help you. Maybe you're driving a certain point and you want to see the universities in that town, the universities in Nairobi are this. Okay, and you're using a second slicer, and you can clearly see the graph changes when you move from town to town when selecting the different universities. So here when I select Nairobi, I'll have those. When I select Nakuru, maybe I'll have the National Defense University. When I go to Narok, I have the Masai Mara University. When I go maybe to, I don't know which other town has more than one university. I'm not really sure. Kiambu. Is there a university in Kiambu? Yeah, the Jomo Kenyatta University. Yeah, I'm just trying to see. Okay, but basically you get the idea. In that the slices help you to now filter data that was inside your table, and this data inside the table is now affecting the data that you can visually see. Okay. Okay. There's a question, the slicer. I like it when you ask a question. Is there any other question? Is there another question apart from Joel's? Yes, go ahead. Mhm. Yes, the slicer works in just in the same manner. Okay, so this slicer just works because now this slicer works in the same manner because it's like a replicated function. Okay, you remember how we said, for example, just to take you back, you can add a comment from the insert ribbon and also come add a comment from the review ribbon. Okay, Scholar, do you remember that? You can add a comment from the review ribbon. Okay, you can also come add a comment from the insert ribbon. Works in the same manner. Okay, all right. Joel is okay, he got it. Is there anybody else who is still struggling with the slicer? Okay, nobody. So guys, that's basically it. I'll just check if okay. So here in our table, as we had used the average star rating, so we can have that. Maybe we can have something else. I'll just go back to my pivot analyze. I'll go to my field list. Maybe I'll add another. I'll just want to check the market retail price here. Okay. The sum. You see now, once I add that, it now distorts my pivot chart. Okay. So here, unless I can go to the pivot chart options. Okay, sorry. If not that, I can go back to my pivot chart here. Okay, not that option. So here, basically when you're inserting a pivot chart, sometimes the pivot chart does not allow for combo charts, but if you're using a value that is high up there and another that is low down there, it's always advisable to use a combo chart. So I'll just start over again and see if I can insert a combo chart just to, yeah, I can be able to insert a combo chart. So sum of market, I can make it maybe to be a line. Then this one I can make it to be a bar. Okay, so here I want a secondary axis. Okay, so you see, although I'll repeat this for anybody who might not have seen it, although the 1 to 5 star rating are quite in different places. Okay, I can be able to see that although Samsung, uh the sum of the prices, okay, is quite high, it is also still ranking on a high star rating. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm driving to. Let me just see if you guys can see. Can you guys see my screen and try to decipher what I'm driving to? The scales are different. Yes, the scales are different. So it enables you to be able to see two different factors at once, although the scales are different. That is the benefit of using a combo chart. Okay. So here, for example, to make maybe a better metric that is almost equal, I will just want to see the count of phones vis-a-vis the average star rating. So here I'll just go to my field list, change. Maybe okay, I'll just use the market retail price, but now I'll just use the market retail price, but now as a count. Okay, it has lost its comboness, so I'll just delete this. I'll have this one, go to my field list. Now this one as well. I'll just have this one. I'll just have this metric as a count. Okay, so I want to see how many phones, maybe the phone with the highest rating that was bought. Okay, clearly you can see the Samsung, but maybe you just wanted to visually see it. I'll go now back to my pivot chart. I will select a combo chart in which maybe I will have one bar chart and another one. No, for this I might not really need to use a secondary axis because again the values are almost close together. Okay, so a secondary sorry, a secondary axis like this one is usually very important where you have maybe something that is in millions and you want to compare maybe a factor. Maybe you were to show the inflation of a country, which is always less than 10%, but we also want to show the revenues, how the revenues are moving maybe in between 2 years. Okay, so the revenues might be in millions or billions. Okay, but maybe the inflation is moving in less than a 10% kind of movement. Okay, so it's also very important while you're showing well, maybe you're working with a pivot chart and you need to show such a metric. For example, here I can clearly see, although Samsung is almost rated third, okay, in terms of the retail in terms of the ratings, okay, it was also the most bought phones when I come to the count, okay. So some other phone that was highly bought with a low star rating is the Vivo. So the Vivo has a very high star rating and four pieces were bought, okay. So again, all this can now be affected by what how we choose to use our slicers. Remember, the slicers will just work in the same way, okay. So here you see, when I remove the slicers again, something happens. The count, because the phones become too many, overpowers the average, okay. The average in my chart, okay. So at this point, okay, just go back, can choose to change the chart type. When I choose to change the chart type, it will take me to my chart. Now I can select a secondary axis on the average star rating, okay. Look at what happens now when that happens, I can now again be able to clearly see the different star rating with the different kind of phones that were bought. So I will see that again my Samsung does not rank very high up in terms of the star rating, but again it was the most bought phone. Remember, human beings are visual beings, okay. So sometimes numbers may not make as much sense as much as a visualization might do, okay. So you will see that maybe Apple has a very high star rating, but in terms of the pieces bought were the pieces bought were only 62. Is there a question up to that point? Is there any question before I check this data? Okay, unfortunately we did not put a date option in the data, okay. So a date option will also be very important. I think that was just an oversight that was not done properly, but I think it will be done in tomorrow's class. In that, now when you have now a date column, okay, in your data, okay. Now using a date column, you can always come to this timeline, uh insert timeline, okay. So once you insert a timeline is a date slicer, okay. So if you're having different months, if you wanted just to go month on how these phones were bought, maybe you can always use the insert timeline. Now it will give you a timeline box. I don't know if I have another data set just to show you, so that it can be clearly understood how a timeline slicer is different from just a normal slicer. That now gives you the ability to go in between dates, okay. Are you together? Have you been able to insert a slicer? Because that is the most important part. Have you been able to insert more than one slicer and then see the interaction between two slices? I know some of you might have seen on my chart here these filter connections, okay. So what does a filter connection do, okay? I want you to look at this place clearly. Under the pivot, analyze the filter connections, okay. So these connections again help you to, it's like they auto filter each other, okay. Let me just reduce this. So I have two slicers here, and then I go to my chart, pivot, and then filter connection. Then it asks me these two slicers, do you want them to be uh to filter each other at every point, okay. So you have the option of uh removing the connection and pressing okay, and look what happens now. When that happens, it doesn't auto filter the town, okay. So when I select maybe Nyeri, and that these things work in very different approaches, okay. So it may not be very good, um and or it's always advisable at each and every point to ensure that your slicers are working in sync unless you're trying to achieve something in specific and you don't want your slicers to be working in harmony. Okay, so just again come back here, make sure the connections are okay so that these two slicers can now auto filter each other. Okay, so yeah. Okay, I think we're moving on well and swiftly, and I think that is well understood by everyone. So I'll just check the next part. So as I had said earlier, okay, I'll just go to yesterday's pivot table. I hope I maintained it. I didn't. Okay, I can just change this. Okay, something else. You guys have seen me use the line graph and the bar graph. Okay, so because this data has quite a lot of points, that's why I chose that. But for example, I was only dealing with maybe one university, say the National Defense University. Okay, I can choose to use any other type of chart. So don't be limited to the type of chart that you can use. You can always go to select your chart type, change chart type, go and use anything that now again will help you drive the information that you want. Okay, now here, once you're here, you can always again now choose the styling of your chart once you're here. Okay, so we can format chart area, you can have a different fields, you can have whatever you want now in your border and all this. But I believe we can look at this while looking how to maybe insert just a normal chart without it being a pivot chart from a pivot. Okay, so again, don't be limited. Check the type of data that you're using and which which uh which chart or which visualization specifically explains that type of data. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so that being said, and there's something that I really wanted us to do, in that I wanted us to change this data. There was a place like I felt here I missed, and maybe it could be also another place in which here maybe you wanted specific ratings, okay, for a phone. Maybe you wanted it to be certain stars and certain GBs. But here in this data, I realized there's a problem. Some data is in GB, some data is in MB, and that cannot help us to get what we want. Okay, so on your smartphone data, I want first an idea to just calculate the storage of the phone. I want to see how I can calculate the storage of this phone to be maybe in GBs only or MBs only. Is there anybody with an idea? So that again now we can use it here on the pivot table, just maybe to see. Again, you want to see as much as you can from this data. Okay, so I had an idea in which I also wanted to see the storage of this phone here, but now I cannot use it for my analysis, because remember these numbers are varying. This is not a number, it includes a text, and this is a number but includes a text. Even if I was to add these two, I'm sure which error will I be getting if I add these two. I want to see if guys are keen and can even anticipate which error will I get when I add those two numbers. I cannot see anything in my chat box, but I will get a value error. Okay, I'm interested to know, because it's a good way to look at it, but John and Kabila, if you will expound, how will we use if statements in this problem? Because I also thought an if statement might work, but then I will find a challenge because, and remember from our previous classes, we said that if checks a logical tests, right? Then it has a value if true, then value if false. How do you think this will work on such a case? Okay, guys, there are two ways to go about this, and I think we had discussed there are two ways to go about this, but the if solution is a two-step solution, correct? If you think about it correctly, but you must first do one step first, then before you go to the if scenario. Okay, but the if cannot work alone. You must first do something, and I want that idea because I want you to look at a problem, try solve it, and then because most of the times getting clean data, also we didn't talk about cleaning data, but sometimes getting clean data might be an issue. So you're given data with 1 GB, which is correct, given another data with 512 MB, but you want to make everything in one unit, into one like standard unit, okay, for you to be able to carry on with your analysis. Any idea? Rayton was correct. That is, John is also correct. Okay. David Wang said search the word MB and divide by 1024. Okay. And then convert to GB. Remember, I cannot divide this number by any. If I try and divide this number, even if I searched all, I still get a value error. Okay, so I won't take so much time. I will show you the two-prong approach in which we will use. One, just use a sample of this, but the search idea is very on point because we can also use it. So the first way to maybe change this data into something that is now common, one is I will use a text to column, because as much as this data is not very clean, I know what delimits it, all the numbers inside is a space. I can see this is a space. Okay, this is one space inside here. Okay, so what I can do, I can use my text to column. Okay, so I highlight this data. Okay, I can just highlight this place and then go to my data under the text to column. Okay, I'll say delimited with next. Okay, so I'll say a space here. Okay, so you see now it separates my number from my word. I'll say next. Okay, then I'll say finish. Okay, so once I'm here, I'm able now to find my number part and my GB part. Okay, so if I was to calculate storage, okay, using the if function will be correct. And in this case, we'll just assume 1 GB is 1000. Okay, just for, okay, we can use the 1024 so that nobody feels like you're doing anything wrong. So for 1 GB is, we know it's 1024. So we can say, if you want maybe to convert them into GBs, okay, we can use the if statement. If this statement is equal to GB, okay, then what do we want the true value to be? We want this number here to be multiplied by 1024. Otherwise, just leave that number as it is. Otherwise, just give me that number that. So I'll just go ahead and check. I don't know why I'm getting an error, but okay. I know sometimes the words, okay, I'll just copy that word there and say if this word, okay, is equal to this, because maybe it has a space inside, but I just choose to insert it to that. Okay, I'll just make sure my R1 is locked. Okay, then give me this, okay, times 1024. Okay, otherwise just give me this number that is there. Okay, so another thing might be this one is not Okay, this one is not being taken in as a number. I will also want to confirm that this is a number. So let me just do a small check. Yeah, they're numbers. So I'll try to write my if. Okay, if this is equal, okay, first of all I can just do this is equal to this to get a true. Okay, so if that is true, and then I'll do this. I'm just checking where the formula might be failing. Okay, that should work. So if this now from the separated column is equal to this, okay, then what do I want my value to be? As if that is true, I want this number to be multiplied by a number 1024. Okay, otherwise I want to give me this. Okay, so it works. I don't know what was the problem, but then that works. Now when I drag down my formula, ensuring that my R1 is locked, I'll get now a common storage. Okay, so this is a two-step approach. Okay, sorry, I just chose to John, I just chose to equate my R1 to R1 so that maybe if there was a space inside here, because I didn't know maybe though if that space, you see, it will mean one. So that's why I chose to just write the GB here and equate it to that. But this is the thinking that if now I've separated my two columns and gotten numbers and a GB, I'm not sure all these values are now in certain GBs. Okay, so if this I wanted now my data maybe in GB, just to see how many GB each phone has, I will now divide the Q2 by 1024. Okay, so I get that gets 1 GB. This should be something like 0.5 GB, and this one should now, whatever is in GB remains. So that's one approach. I thought it was
Before you move on, then, before you move on,
okay.
go back to
I just restart again so that everybody follows. So oh, you want just to ask something? Okay, I'll just go to this column, highlight it, then go to text to column delimited next. Mm. Not really. There's not a difference. By default, it's usually on tab. So if you leave it, it's okay. But a tab and a space basically mean the same thing. Is it not true? So if I was writing something tab, you see, if I'm on Excel and writing like Kennedy, or you're on Microsoft, and then you tab, a tab usually indicates a space. Okay. So if I tab and a space, they should be the same thing. So there's not so much difference. Okay. But you did understand the most important part was dividing, then getting a number, then now giving it an if formula. Okay. So the other option will be, okay, a search. Okay. So what are you searching? Okay. So find text. Maybe I was searching a blank. Okay. This is the easier route. Then within which text within this. Okay. So if I was to find that, what will I find? I'll find one. Okay. See that how that works. So here, This seems not to be working right, but again, you must note that if this doesn't work, you can always use this option. I was thinking of combining maybe a left search, okay, that a left search that is searches for anywhere we have this space, okay, then it gives me anything left of that space, okay. Let me just see if I find, okay, let me just, because this might be easier for somebody who does not want to, okay, just finds one, doesn't give me the correct position, because if it gave me the second position, then I will be able to find the left of it, so that to only extract the number, okay. But I'll try working on it and see if we have a solution. But meanwhile, we can just use this column that we created here, okay, this one, and just take it there, okay. So the formula works, that checks that. Then now I'll use it for my full column, okay. So I'll just check why this one is not working. This one checks if there are two. Okay, now I need to change the Q now to this column, okay. Okay, sorry, we can't do that, because remember we had delimited this column. That's why I was thinking of the other option, because now we'll have to delimit the whole column, okay. Sorry for that part, we need to delimit the whole column, this one. Again, the challenge is delimiting. If I try to delimit at this point, okay, if I try to separate at this point here, okay, it will mean that it will auto delete, it will replace this data, so that's a challenge, okay. So if you want to delimit it, you can always use it. That's why you saw I chose to use this place, okay. So that's what I'll use, just in the best interest of time. I'll just copy this RAM. Remember guys, we just wanted to see if somebody if you were to rank all these phones based on storage, okay. But then I saw an opportunity to maybe infer from something that we had learned earlier on, okay. So here I just go down again, text to column, delimited with, I'll say a space, okay, next, finish, okay. So here I can copy this formula here. Remember what we said about copying formulas and moving references, because remember nothing is locked here. So if I just drag my formula, all my references will have moved. But now I need to move this from here to here, and I need to move my GB from here. Sorry, I need to move my GB from here to here, okay. Then I need my R2 to become R1, okay. Then that, now I can have my column as desired in GBs, okay. So here, storage. Hope everybody has understood that point and nobody has gotten confused while you were transforming, because it's very important for you to know how now you can make such changes. For example, you're given a GB and MB situation, you're able to tackle it, okay. So I'll just copy this as values, because I want to delete all the other extra columns to remove the formulas, because if I happen to delete any part of this, I'll get a 0, okay. So I need first to copy this, okay, the whole column. I'll copy and I'll paste it as values, so that my values remain. Then I can delete all these extra unnecessary columns. So here in my table, I've now added a a storage of the phone in which it can help me now if selecting the phone or filtering in my pivots. Okay, so I'll just go ahead here and add it to my tables. Okay, because I know all my tables follow search, because but it's important if you could do it from the table part, it's okay, but now since I'm just adding, we'll also see how. Okay, I'll just go to the last. Okay, ensure that's okay. I ensure my table is resized. Remember, we are doing all these things at once just to show how you can be working. Okay, so here, I hope nobody is confused. That is my hope. So here, if I was to have now something else, okay, maybe just to see, I don't want these things. I want to see the preference in terms of GB averagely by students from university. This is what I'll do. So if I was maybe to look for, if I'm the creator of forms, okay, and I just want to see maybe by university, I'll just have university, college, yeah. I'll remove the brand, and then now I'll okay. So here, note that this brings us only Dedan Kimathi because the slicer here we had selected Dedan Kimathi. You can always, to clear from your slicers, use this button here, clear. Okay, the chart is empty because now it has nothing. The chart is very empty here. Now again, now I want to refresh just to now bring in the new. You see the field for storage has not been updated here, so here I'll just go ahead and do a data refresh. So storage in GB, I now come here and put storage in GB, but now I want in average. Okay, so I want an average number. So basically, students prefer a phone that is 4 GB. Okay, because you can see most phones here are 4 GB, but there's some from certain universities. I can sort here just to see. So if I was a maker of a phone from this study, okay, let me just go from sort from the largest to the smallest. So if I was a maker of a phone, I will clearly know that maybe students from Kabianga University prefer phones with maybe 5 GB and all that. Okay, so you have been able to infer or to give some life to numbers that were lying lifelessly here as a GB and an MB. Okay, so here you can be able to make some meaningful conclusion just from this conversion that you have done right here. Okay, so it is usually very important just to see how you can do such different things um, when it comes to conversion of numbers. Okay, so any question up to that point? I hope you guys have been able to understand. A mic is on. I'll suppose that's a question. No. Uh, the gauge visual is not a default visual by Excel. Okay. It's so if you want to create it, you have to create the pies themselves. It's quite something while you're creating a gauge visual, to be honest. But in case you need the procedure to create it, I can always show you. But it's quite complicated because you have to specify all the pies and all the angles, okay, of the pie, so that you get a pointer and the different segmentations of the pie. Okay, so that is not we don't have the pie visual as a default visual in Excel. Okay, any other question? I just want to ensure that this works correctly. Yes. Don't know why this one didn't work. This one. I was very interested in ensuring this one works. No, it doesn't work as I expected it to work. But no worries. I'll just recheck it and get to see the issue. Sorry for that. But that was a nice observation that we can always change data in different formats too to what we want. Now I'm just checking what I should check next. I would have wanted to go to the Power Query, but I'll start on that tomorrow. So before that, maybe I'll go to the insert ribbon just so that we can see. Okay, I want to finish up on the pivot chart, but before that, I'll go to the insert so that we can see the various different visualizations that we can use in Excel. Because again, we are short of time. Is there a question? Okay. Oh yeah. That's right. That's right. Okay, that's a good suggestion, Omundi. Now let me just get to see if I have that data. I don't know what I don't know what I'd named it, but I think it was project. Yeah. Okay. So here, yeah, we had dates here. Okay, that's nice. Thank you, Mundi, for that suggestion. So here, remember the rule of thumb. I'll just delete this. The rule of thumb for me is usually the data should be in very readable formats or easily noticeable to even the non-Excel users. Okay. Okay, so here, guys, you can see we have a data set with dates. Okay. So for example, just a refresh. This was the data that you used for your first project. Okay. It had various classes, various classes of insurance, various branches, the authorization dates, the period cover from, the period cover to, okay, and then it had the account years and then the premium and the sum insured, okay. So if I was to insert a pivot chart for this, then I'll use the same procedure. Since I don't want to maybe create a table out of this, I'll just go to the insert pivot table range. Okay, this is just a pro tip. Okay, before I even show you what I want to show you. Okay, usually when you're using Excel, you might need to move very fast. Okay, so there are some shortcuts that you might need to know, like basically. Okay, so you might have had me mention a Control C, Control V, Control Alt V. Okay, so that's the special paste that brings up this dialog box. Okay, there's some alt 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 shortcuts that you might also need to know, because sometimes you're creating very many, you're maybe working on a lot of pivots. Okay, so when you press alt on your keyboard, you'll always see a quick guide on where you want to go. Okay, so for example, if I was to insert, I'll go to alt n v t. Okay, so that will already bring up my dialog box, but it only comes if you use it again. So when you press alt, when you press n, okay, so it will just guide you on the screen. So for example, alt n Okay, I already know that in that way I can create my data. So some things like if I wanted to separate this um text to column, I know that I'll go to Alt A, maybe E, and then I have my dialog box here, because sometimes clicking in might take you a lot of time. Since this is a class, an advanced class, I think that is very imperative for you to know that there are various shortcuts. I cannot be able to show you all of them, but basically when you're using the Control C, the Control Alt V, you're using your Control 9 maybe to hide and hide. Okay, the control ones, those are the most basic. But now when you really want to move faster, using the mouse might slow you a bit. Like personally, I don't use the mouse because it might make you some of, keep on clicking, and you can do some things by just clicking a few combination of buttons. Is that well noted? Kindly note all these shortcuts. I can send you a summary of them after we are done with our classes, just for you to go practice. But we cannot be able to exhaust all of them. So back to Omondi's very nice suggestion on using a timeline slicer. So for example, here I'll just go to my insert ribbon. Okay, go to pivot table, then go to here table or range. I press OK. I want it in a new worksheet. Okay, now I have my 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 worksheet here. For example, now I want to maybe to see the premiums paid. Okay, I want some insured paid. Okay, I also want to see the town in which this business comes from. So I'll just go to the branch code. Okay, so I have various town in which the premiums are, these are the total premiums paid for this amount of time. Okay, within these towns. Okay, within these towns, so I'll format them nicely. Even if not to currency, I can just make sure. Okay, I just format them to currency 0. Yes. Okay, so I have that. Just as a recap, I'll create a percentage of the premium as a sum insured as a calculated column to see which town has the riskiest type of insurance, because if the premium amount is less, that means that it carries in less risk compared to this. So here I'll just go ahead, add a calculated column just for anybody who might have missed it. Calculated field. So here percentage premium as a percentage, I can say premium over sum insured. Okay, so here I'll just go take my premium. Okay, that one over the sum insured, then I'll format it as a okay. Here I can change this heading to what I want. Premium over sum insured as a percentage. Sum insured. So I'll change this into percentage, because remember it takes the formatting of the whatever was there. Okay, so 1%. So you can see that the insurance with the highest, maybe Nakuru is a riskier town because the premiums are quite higher compared to the value of the sum insured. Okay, so sorry, Thika town has the highest sum insured. So that was a column that was not initially there, but now we have just created it to give us more information. Okay, so here we wanted to go ahead to our pivot analyze, then insert slicer. Okay, so here I might insert a slicer. This is just to show you maybe source of business. Okay, okay, here I have 4 sources of business. Okay, so for example, I have that and that. So here I can have that. Now whatever brought us here was a timeline slicer. Okay, so what happens when you select a timeline slicer? This will just help you to, this normal slicer will show you the how different types of businesses were brought in. Okay, now based on what we had selected here. Okay, so for example, the facultative in this business on is only in Nairobi and was brought in only, it is only that business. Okay, so let's select the timeline slicer and see what happens to now what we have. Okay, and it can also infer to what we might have in our chart. Okay, we'll also create a chart just to see the same. So here, go here, I go back to my timeline slicer. Okay, now you see once Excel notices their dates. Okay, you see here their dates, it tells me which dates do you want to use. Maybe I want to see based on the authorization dates. I hope then these ones might be quite, because authorization might be a bulk process. I'll just use either the period cover from or the period cover to, maybe I just want to see insurances that are ending in 2017, in 2018, and that. So here I'll just come, or I can choose to use the period cover from just to see when that business came in and which town it came in and who brought it in. I'll just go to my pivot chart, analyze, insert timeline. Okay, I can use either this one. Now look at how this slicer looks. It's quite different from the normal slicer because now this is a timeline slicer. Okay, so here I can choose what to have. Okay, so I have months, okay, which are all the way from when this maybe sorry, when maybe these businesses were brought in. For example, if I was just uh to select maybe 2016 February, I will see these are the types of, or these are the businesses which came in 2016 February. Okay, so if I was to go to March, that is what I'll have. Sometimes you might need two slicers, one for the month, one for the year. Okay, so here it shows me all the periods. So let me just move this one. Here I can choose to have maybe one in years. Okay, so one, I have one in years, I can replicate this. You can just copy this. When you copy a slicer and paste it, it will give you the same slicer. Okay, so maybe I can choose another slicer here of the same family. Yeah, now I have one that now filters. So if I want to see only businesses that came in the different towns in maybe a particular year, 2018, I have that. Okay, but now on this one I want to see months. Okay, so that I can be able now to control my, I'll just have this, I'll just remove this, I'll just make sure this is months only. So once, which one? The lower, you cannot see from this one that I'm moving around my screen. Okay, so I'm saying once I maybe use that slicer, remember I've now selected two slicers. Okay, so one with years and another one having months. Okay, so once I do that, maybe I want now to drill down to the specific month, maybe how, which type of insurance, okay, was brought in or how much was brought in by, in terms of premium in a certain month in 2018. If it's December, I'll go to that. Okay, so you see this slicer up here now becomes the year part, but only with the December. Okay, so I can choose to go to October, choose to go to September. There was none, no businesses came in. So it will be like a question for me, why were no businesses coming in these various months. Okay, so I can choose to undo everything, select an year. Okay, are we together, guys? And thank you for giving me this idea of using this data set. Okay, now I also want us to have now this inside a chart. Okay, so I'll just use the chart. Okay, so here I can use a line. Okay, I'll just check who is this. All right, so here I'll go ahead and remove the subtotals just to give us a crispier look. Okay, I think there's a business here, the facultative inn, that is making this business go so high, so I can choose to remove Nairobi. Okay, so this shows you the various businesses. Okay, but now what I want to be displayed here is the date. Okay, so I'll go to my pivot chart, sorry, my fields. Okay, just click away. I'll go to my field design. Okay, I'll now put a date like the period cover from to be maybe a row. Okay, now you see something else. I'll remove my maybe town just for okay, I'll remove here. I'll remove the branch code. Okay, I'll remove the quarters. Okay, sum insured. Okay, you can see this major business. Okay, like you can see the major business came in January now, but I just wanted to elaborate how now uh, the different slicers work. Okay, so once I have this, it's just that we have an outlier here, which is the, I think, under the facultative in, if I'm not wrong. So for example, if I wanted to see how the broker business has been doing, I'll just now use the different slicer, the timeline slicer. Okay, you see now in 2018 I can see this is how they were, or 2017 rather, this is how the broker business. Now based on the slicer, based on the different slicer that I've chosen here, based on the timeline, I can see for the year 2017 business was at its peak in the month of June, where the brokers brought in premiums of about, oh, this was the sum insured, so I can even go do away with the sum insured, so that I just have a graph on the. I'll also remove the premium. Okay, I can leave this and have it as a combo chart. Remember we said you can, for different numbers that vary, you can always use a combo. Here I'll use my percentage here. Okay, so I can see how my premiums were moving in these different months or these different years, uh, versus how my risk was in terms of the percentage of premium as a percentage of the sum insured. Okay, so if I remove that, I also get to see, I can also get to see the different metrics. So the timeline slicer is very important when you want to see some time series data. Okay, just to visualize some time series data, now have a slicer that now can enable you to select different periods that you want. Okay, so this was very important, but since my data didn't have, I had to come back to maybe the project that you had done, just for you maybe to see on how you can use the timeline slicer for some various needs of your project. Okay, Omondi, has that answered any question that you might have had on the timeline slicer? Okay, okay, thank you for that. I would ask, is there any question or anybody who has not understood on how you can even copy a slicer? Okay, on how you can use two slicers maybe to achieve something like this one is first filtering the year, Then this one enables you maybe to drill down to the month that you might want. Okay. Any questions? They're really struggling to hear you, Kabila. Ask your question. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, for example, I assume somebody was born on the first day of 2000. I want to see if this is a date. Maybe somebody was born on the first day of 2000, which was on a Saturday, and you want to calculate his years up until today. Or what do you want to calculate? The years. Okay. So here there are two things you can do. Okay. So you can use the function year. This year, okay, gives you like a number. So what happens when I give this year? Okay, it will give me 2000. Okay. All right. So I can also use from the today function, I can say today. It will give me a date. Okay. Wrap it in an year. So, okay, let me just see this. Should be giving me a number. Let me see the number that it gives me. 2023. So if I was to subtract this year today minus the year here on the date of birth, okay, I'll find that a person who was born on Saturday 1st January 2000 is 23 years today. Okay. So what of a person who was born in, sorry for that, for a person who was born in 1995, okay, he's 28 years as of today. Okay. But this formula now just subtracts the general years minus year. Okay. Hope you have understood. There's another formula, but I think it was um it was removed from Excel. It was called a dated if. Okay, don't think if I can remember its syntax. Okay, I see it's here. Hope it connects and shows me the syntax. Okay, so the dated if is a formula. I think they removed it, but when you go to your help, you can find it. As you can see, I'm using the help here. Sorry. The dated if is a function in order to support older workbooks from this Lotus 1, 2, 3. It gives you the option of putting in a start date and an end date, and then you select the units that you want. Okay. So if you want the days difference between certain days, you can even do that. Okay. So for example, if we're using a dated if between this day, okay, because you see this how the syntax reads just from here. Start date is that date, okay. So that will be our start date. Then our end date will be today as a function. Okay, then you will have to select which value do you want. I want the maybe the difference in months. Okay, so a person who was born maybe in 2000 is 276 months today. So if you divided this, if you wanted now the value in years, you will have 23 years. If you wanted the value in days, the difference between 2 days, two dates, it will be 8431 days. Okay. I don't know if you answered. I don't know if you're satisfied with that question answer. Yes. Oh, okay. But this dated if it's an older formula, so you need to even the syntax. You see how we normally do the sum, get the syntax, okay, use the dated if, you won't get it, okay? All right, is there any other question, maybe to on today's class, or just an ad hoc question like that? Okay. Not to water down what we have done, and what I will want you to do, maybe is also go now to the uh, to 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 this data set. Try do some things. Try maybe give a summary of, if you are to explain to somebody all these rows. Okay, remember we saw there was 79, I think 99, if I'm not wrong, 79, 99 rows. If you just to give a short summary of this data using pivot tables, okay, I just want to see if you're to give short summaries, maybe explain to someone something using this set of data. I would want to see how your idea looks like, okay, so that tomorrow you might now get to see how to maybe get data from other sources in terms of power. You can look a little bit on the power pivot and on the power query, okay, so we can query data from the web, because now I believe everybody is getting these ideas well, okay. Yes. Is there any other question, guys? Oh, those are John Gidui on the time slicer. Okay, sorry for that. I didn't see it, but I'll just give you a minute before we call it a day. So for the time slicer, I said, uh, on your data, if you're using a pivot, the data that you're using, be it from a table or a range, once Excel does identify their dates here under the slicer now, in which scholar is it, I think it's scholar said we can add either under the pivot table analyze insert slicer or the insert timeline here, okay. Once Excel notices from your pivot table that there is a date, it gives you a timeline slicer options, okay. So if we check on our data, just cancel this. If you check on our data, there are three columns having dates, okay? One was the authorization date, the other one was period cover from, the next was period cover to. So once it realizes their dates or identify their dates, it will always give you the option of inserting a pivot times a timeline slicer. So once you insert a timeline slicer, you can always select the timeline that you want to use, be it a period cover from, okay. So once you do that, you can always come, okay, uh this is just to format it. You can always come select the periods that you want, okay. So for example, how do you want your timeline to appear? I want it to appear in years only, okay. So maybe you can copy this, okay, and I copy this and paste it. I have the same slicer. I push it down. So again, I can select, I want this slicer only to appear in maybe months only, okay. Then it shows me all the periods, so that when I select maybe an year, I'm at the liberty to select the other months. For example, here, if I was to select December, I know there was nothing because, or there was something small, that's why it was not being shown as a very big value, okay. So I hope you're okay, and you can go, actually, as I'll keep repeating this, you can only get better by practicing what we have learned, okay. So John says they're okay, and I'm glad for that, and I'm happy for everybody who's been following in the class. I think we'll call it a day at that point, because I can also see that we are out of time. But thank you very much for your cooperation, and keep learning and keep using these skills that we keep on learning. As you see, we are building up on day by day. We learned about text to column on the first day, but we have used it to make some sense out of a data and then summarize it in a pivot uh, today, okay. So thank you for listening, And that's the end of our class. Let's meet tomorrow, same time, same place, for our class.